Hello everyone, welcome back to Bunny Musings. This is Bunny, and this is episode 13, which is crazy. Oh my goodness. So, about a month ago, give or take, I did a video about the Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laurie Gilmore, and I said I may or may not continue and do videos on the rest of the series. And so I decided, you know what, why not? The wait time on Libby wasn't too bad, and I was just like, whatever, okay, let's read the next one. And so the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore is book 2, and I just kind of was like, each book is gonna be different. Let me see what they're about. So I didn't really pay too much attention to the premise before I started reading. And if it wasn't such an easy read, I might have DNF'd the book. Just because, I don't know. It was good. It was cute. Um, it was kind of one of those, like, oh, this is a nice atmospheric thing. It wasn't as atmospheric as the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, because that was very clearly like a fall set one, but this was more of a summer one, which is interesting to me because whatchamacallit, like it kind of ends in the fall, which, by the way, spoilers, yes, there will be spoilers. I will be talking with lots of spoilers. So, um, yes, if you haven't read the book, please go do that and check the content warnings before continuing. Uh, yeah, okay. So, to me, cinnamon buns are a fall thing. I know they're year round, but cinnamon, I expected another cozy read like the first book, but this book was set in summer, which was quite shocking to me. But, yeah. So I don't know if it's just because I don't relate to the female main character, Hazel. I don't know if that's why, but to me, the premise of the book was a bit lackluster in comparison to the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Um, yeah, so the premise of this book was like someone's leaving her clues in her bookstore, and she doesn't know who it is, but just that it's encouraging her to go on adventures, and so she enlists the help of Noah, the main male character. The main male character? What the hell? I was like, wait. I paused because my brain was like, that doesn't sound right. You've definitely said that wrong. Yeah. The the main the male main character. Yeah, there we go. I was, the main male character. I mean, technically, yeah, but whatever. Okay. And so he's kind of like, in Regency terms, like a rake. He just kind of messes around, one night stands, only with tourists. He doesn't like um, date anybody from Dream Harbor because he doesn't want it to be awkward after they break things off. But he's started developing feelings for Hazel, and so he's been buying books from her store, like, pretty consistently, which is so cute. You know, just to see her more often, just to get to talk to her, that's like pining, yearning, you know, yeah, which is like a little, like, in the book, he's 25, I would like to think that 25-year-olds um, would have a bit more confidence in themselves, especially since he's like a confident guy, to be like, hey, but I get rejection is like a hard thing. But to be like, hey, I'd like to take you on a date, to get to know you better. But it is like a small town plot where it's kind of like everybody knows everybody and he's from out of town and nobody really knows a whole lot about him except for the fact that he's best friends with the male lead from the previous book, right? And who was Logan? Not me being like, who the hell was this guy? I don't remember. Um, yeah, because Logan and Jeannie were the leads for the previous book. Um, but yeah, the premise of the plot basically came up to be like a quarter life crisis where Hazel was like, I've only ever done things the safe way, and I've only ever worked at this bookstore, and I've never left town, and etc. Or whatever she was rambling on about. And she's like, I'm gonna turn 30 and I haven't lived properly. And I was like, I guess it's because I don't relate to the notion that playing things safe or liking cozy things makes life boring or stagnant. But Hazel was a bit stagnant, and I honestly think it's because they didn't mention her, like, her character depth was a bit not depth. It was a bit shallow in the fact that she worked at the bookstore, her main hobby was reading, and then she was like the daughter of the town mayor. But other than that, she didn't have a whole lot going on, and I'm like, girl, no wonder you're bored. Like, you could get hobbies, but like she's in the book club, so like everything in her life revolves around books. And that's not a bad thing to like have a main thing and to like that thing. But if you're bored, I wouldn't think, oh, I need to go on an adventure. I'd be like, oh, maybe I could learn something new. Or, you know, like I don't think you necessarily have to push so hard out of your comfort zone to start shifting things, you know? Because, like, you don't have to go from 0 to 100. There's, like, momentum you can build, going outside a couple times instead of, I don't know, just doing something. Um, but yeah, I I think that's why I didn't vibe with the premise. Maybe it's because I'm not pushing 30 yet. Like, maybe it's because I'm nowhere close. Like, I don't know. But I've, like, played it safe, quote unquote, throughout my life, and I like indoor activities, and I don't know, it just doesn't feel like I'm missing anything because those are preferences, and they're preferences for a reason. And so for me to be like, I don't know what I like because I haven't lived, I think that's inaccurate for me personally, but maybe not for Hazel. I don't know, but she's also kind of me like me. She doesn't like bugs. She doesn't like I don't know, getting spooked by animals outside. She's like afraid of the seagulls at the beach. She doesn't really like sun exposure. You know, there like I understood her on a lot of things. Like she's scared of getting hurt or etc. etc. And I'm like, sometimes preferences keep you safe. You know, I exist in a certain way because that's what I'm comfortable with dealing with, but I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything just because other people say, this is how you should live life, or this is what's fun, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, not to go on a rant, but it was just like that part of the premise wasn't super understandable to me emotionally. So most of what kept me reading the book was like the subtle mystery element of it, which was like who is leaving her these notes in these books, you know? And like obviously it had to be someone close to her because it's a small town for one, but for two, um, it was like really like well-known details and like subtle details, and I'm like, it has to be someone who's known you for forever. And so at the end when it was like, okay, again, warning, major spoilers, when they were like, it's your dad, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, and that's kind of anti-climactic, but whatever. And yeah, okay. I have my notes written down here. I just have like a couple bullet points of things I wanted to touch on. The second thing I wanted to touch on was that the communication in this book kind of sucked, which is like very typical in these kinds of romance novels where it's like one conversation could shorten the book drastically. And this was that kind of book, so beware of that if you are annoyed by that sort of thing. If you're not looking for a cozy read. But yeah, it was just sort of like Hazel didn't quite say everything that was on her mind, and Noah really didn't say anything that was on his mind half the time except for how attractive he found Hazel. But he never like spelled out his feelings past that. And so Hazel just kind of thought, oh, he's just here for a good time with me, you know, and then he's gonna move on and it'll be over. And every time Hazel suggested that to him, or like tried to keep things casual in order to prevent scaring him away, basically, because she thought he would leave if she got all heavy with her feelings. It would, yeah, every time she suggested casual, it kind of hurt his feelings. And you could really tell by, mostly by the expressions that were hinted towards, where it would be like he frowned, but then quickly smiled or smirked or, you know, joked around with her to pass the moment. but it was like very clearly like he's getting his feelings hurt because she doesn't know that he wants more, even though that's not his usual thing. But Noah was very insecure. This book is probably um, one of the most insecure, confident guys I've ever read. And I don't know if that's a true statement, but it kind of feels like it because he's charming, he's charismatic, he knows that the ladies like him, and then he's like, I didn't finish high school, I abandoned my family's business, my family's disappointed in me, I haven't been home in years because I think they're disappointed in me, and like I'm a terrible uncle. And he was just going on and on and on about these different things in his point of view and how he's like so handy in certain ways, in terms of like fishing and boating and, you know, building those little stay, where, what would they be called? I don't know why I was gonna call it like a little staycation home, like the no, but he wants tourists to like pay to rent out the little shacks that he was making by the beach, which he was doing illegally. Wow. But he had a good idea and it was good for the town and they saw that eventually. But I don't know, just to he has competence, but I don't know if it's that like 20 some mentality. I don't really know the ages of the other male leads that I've been reading for, but I guess it I don't know. I don't know if it's like an age thing or just like what he's experienced in particular. But like not everybody excels in school. Like school is a very particular way of measuring intelligence and measuring like thought process and, you know, strategic problem solving, things like that. Like it's a very narrow view of what this world has to offer and like the skills that people have, you know, because not some people are more creative, some people are more abstract thinkers. You know, it really depends on the person and what their niche is and what they like learning about. And so, but yeah, there is that kind of societal piece of like if you don't do well in school or if you don't finish school, like you're limited to the kind of jobs you can get and things like that. But it's like, why are we ranking jobs solely on earnings and quote unquote societal respectability? Like, I don't know. There's a place for everybody, you know? And it's just like everybody is needed. This world is so big, it's so diverse, and it's like to say that certain tracks are the right or wrong thing is like, hello? Because, like, who else in Dream Harbor was doing fishing tours and boating tours and, like, trying to come up with ways to draw in tourists that would actually be enjoyable for them? Like, nobody else was really trying to do anything about that but him. And so that's like a niche in its own. And I don't know, like, he fills a role in society. He carved a little path of his own, even though it wasn't what was expected or hoped for. Now, what I didn't particularly enjoy about this framing of Noah's insecurity is that I thought it was a bit unfair that the end of it seemed to resolve with it was just in his head. And like the main conflict being it's just in your head, bro, was kind of anticlimactic to me because he did leave the family company. Like, he just dipped. And sure, maybe his family misses him. Sure, his family loves him. But I really don't know that it would resolve as smoothly as it did in the book as it would in real life. And like, to amount it to he just invented like these perceptions that other people had of him, I don't know. It's like, where did the insecurity come from if it wasn't from outside, you know? Like, was it friends that talked down to him? Was it his family that talked down to him or made him feel bad? Because his family kind of had a joking, like, bet on whether he would actually come home or not. And I don't know. It's just like, I don't believe like like it was very much giving like fairy tale kind of storytelling rather than like grounded and complicated attachment dynamics and family roles kind of thing. So, I guess for the purposes of it being a cozy read, that's a very good thing. You know, nobody wants to be dragged down and stressed out by things that don't get resolved in books, usually because those kind of dynamics take work, take years, take maybe never to change. And obviously, in the purposes of having a cozy atmospheric read, that would not work. So, for the particular style of this book, it was a very good decision. But obviously, I'm looking at my lens of like attachment theory and, you know, family dynamics and roles and, you know, how like internal family systems and how those things affect people's, you know, thought processes and whatnot. It doesn't make sense in real life, but for this book it's great. because but then it like poses the question of like, why is that the main conflict if it's just gonna get swept to the side? You know. um but a lot of it was him comparing himself to Hazel because she is like 5 years older than him. And so Noah was like, I need to deserve the kind of put together woman you are. But like, in reality, Hazel just kind of got slapped with the job when she was young, and she's been working there since then. And like, yeah, it's stable. Yeah, she's basically, like, honestly, for what she does, she's kind of being underpaid, if anything. like it doesn't say her particular salary, but she's like in charge of the store and someone owns it. But she basically manages like inventory and employees and different things, and she like conforms to the whims of the daughter of the man who bought it for her. Is just like, if anything, she's not earning pay worth her effort. But yeah, I think it just kind of goes to show that like maybe people are comfortable in the jobs that they have, but it might not be entirely fulfilling for them, or that it's just kind of what they've been pushed into or what they've managed to get, and leaving that is kind of difficult. I don't know. But for Noah to be like, I have to earn, I have to be worthy of you, it's more like, no, you just have to like be committed. Like you have to stay in town, you have to build a life here, that sort of thing. Yeah. And then my last bullet point, but not my last thought, because I remembered something else for the epilogue, so I will come back to that. But I said that the writing for Noah was praised for asking for consent, especially in like spicy scenes, and checking in with Hazel. But like, also, here's my thing. He was praised for the bare minimum, which, like, okay, yes, we get that the bare minimum doesn't happen in real life sometimes. Or maybe most times, I don't know. But he kind of also didn't listen to Hazel for the smaller things that she was uncomfortable with. Like, yeah, she wanted to step out of her comfort zone, and but like, she had actual fears that were kind of brushed aside by him. You know, like there at the very beginning of the book, there was the Ferris wheel scene where she was like, I'm scared. I don't want to get on that. And he was like, no, it'll be fine. And then they're on the Ferris wheel, and she's basically like white knuckling, trying to like put up with being on the Ferris wheel because apparently years prior she had got stuck on the top of it when there was like a storm and they had to call people to come get her and her friend down, and she was like actually traumatized because there was like thunder and lightning and rain. And he goes, why didn't you tell me you were scared? And it's like, why didn't you accept the first no? Is more like avoidance, hesitation, typically sign markers of people being uncomfortable. And so she did kind of tell you that she was scared, is my thing. And like, personally, if I was in Hazel's shoes, which I could relate to that scene in a way, I also don't like Ferris wheels. And um like, if I was in her shoes and I was like into Noah, but he pushed me to go on to a Ferris wheel because like, just trust me, like, let's try something new, like maybe it'll be different this time. No. I have very strong fear responses, and I would be like, you have lost points in my book for like overriding my sense of comfort and safety. Like, it wouldn't be quite ick level, but for that reason alone, it would be like a red flag for me, because it's like, I don't know. I will not tolerate people overriding that sort of thing. And yeah, but Hazel is obviously trying to have a summer of fun with him. And I think there's a way to have a summer of fun without pushing yourself too hard. Is basically, yeah, there's like out of your comfort zone, and then there's fear responses, and like some fear responses are like not, like they're kind of evolutionary in some ways. It really depends on the thing, honestly, and like the level of intensity of the fear response, but like sometimes your body reacts to like a sense of safety or a sense of unsafety, and it's not always like conscious. It's not always like, oh my god, I hate the shape of Ferris wheels and that's why I'm scared. No, it's like from a evolutionary standpoint. I don't know if that's the right term either, but like from an internal standpoint, this feels like I could fall. you know, this feels unsafe to me. And so, but it's like, that's not a thought thing, that's just like a sense. And so, from that perspective, if it was like, if I was doing a rating of like, would I date the male lead for Noah, it would be a no, simply based off of that and other times, like when he took her boating at the end of the book and she was scared of being in the open water and he lost track of where they were and there was a sudden storm and she was like, I don't want to fall into shark infested waters. Her fear responses weren't written that strong because, again, it is supposed to be a cozy book. But yeah, basically just that, oh, it'll be fine. And then him like being competent enough to save them and then being like, haha, it's a good thing I saved our lives. And then her being like, what do you mean? I thought you had it under control. It's just like, I don't know. That was weird also. And so there were moments like that where I was like, yeah, sure, whatever in the spicy scenes. He was like, is this okay? But in other aspects of consent, he kind of dropped the ball. Just because Hazel wanted to have fun, but she was like really pushing herself. And then, yeah, I don't know. And then at the very end, the epilogue, I didn't particularly like, usually I absolutely love a, whatchamacallit, like a happily ever after or like a happy for now kind of thing. I usually do. But this one was like a proposal, but they had only been together for, I don't know, like a matter of months. Like it was less than a year. And his proposal, he didn't even have a ring. He didn't even have a ring. And he was like, I got the documents and we can get married on this beach if you want. And it's like, huh? Because You didn't ask me ahead of time. You didn't get the ring. You didn't ask me about the ring. Like, did you ask me if I wanted to get married? Like, and like on what timeline, etc., etc. And here's the thing. I, like, I'm not scared of the idea of marriage. You know, like the concept of marriage I have in my head seems nice. in in reality, it's definitely a lot more than that, and it's a lot more complicated. But like in terms of existing in these book realms, the concept of marriage is nice for most of these characters. But for this book in particular, it kind of made me do like a book double take. I was like, are we really rushing? Like, there's been books where I'm like, I wish that there was like a proposal. I wish that there was like a wedding, something. Like, just to, you know, prove that the characters had like evolved past where they were. But it kind of feels like Noah went from 0 to 100, which is kind of, I guess, his personality in this book. Um, Not in a bad way most of the time, but he's kind of more carefree and, outgoing and adventurous. But for a guy to go from I only do hookups to let's get married, that kind of, like, I understand that he's very devoted to her, and it's cute. It's like he loves her, the feelings are strong, but like the proof of concept isn't quite there. if if that's what I mean to say. But yeah, that was just like, this was literally the only time I've ever read a book where I was like, this is fast. And there's nothing wrong with that, cuz like he genuinely was working hard. Like, he went back to his family. He took her home for Thanksgiving. She met his family, etc., etc. I don't know. I guess it's because of the way the plot was structured, because most of these books, the characters get back together or get together towards the very end. So there's not a lot of time where we see them in like a, oh, life is good and we're together and we're cute. Um, there's not a lot of time for that to happen. Like, there's generally like 2 or 3 chapters and then maybe the epilogue. So there's like a very small page count for them to be together, and just like the pacing of their relationship didn't match the ending, in my opinion. So that is kind of all of my thoughts. Was it a cozy read? Yeah. Was it enjoyable? Yeah. Did I think it should have been fall themed given the mystery and cinnamon bun bookstore title? Yeah, that was kind of my expectation, like a November fall kind of situation, maybe, whatever. Um but it's okay. We can adapt to summer. It is summer right now. Um so it was quite seasonal. It was very beachy, if anything. If I had to describe the book, beach would be the main thing that came to mind. Um, but yeah, other than that, it was really nice because this is a part of a series. So these are technically standalones, but like if you read them in order, you get to see the side characters eventually become the leads of their own book, but also um, the leads of previous books becoming side characters for new leads, which it was really nice to see Logan and Jeannie throughout this book. And honestly, like the updates were pretty obvious. Like it almost read like a continuation of their happy for now kind of thing, where it was like Logan was getting ready to propose, and yeah, which was actually how Noah got the idea to propose to Hazel. It was like a monkey see monkey do type of thing where he was like, he has a ring for his girl, so maybe I should get one for mine too. It was like a really bizarre guy thought. I don't know. Um, but yeah, it was nice to see that like Jeannie was moving in with Logan and that they were likely gonna get married, which after that book is a really big deal because the whole conflict of that book was Logan being like, my ex rejected my proposal in front of the entire town, and I'm like embarrassed to be seen loving someone so quickly, so deeply. And yeah, eventually, and clearly he's gotten over that, but he has delayed it a little bit. Like, he was like, by the end of the year, I'm gonna have a ring on that finger or something, whatever he said. And then it was like Thanksgiving and he still hadn't proposed. And so clearly, maybe he's still got that ex trauma going on, something. I don't know. But it was very nice to keep up with the previous characters, and hopefully they we might get to see them again in the third book and beyond. So yeah, that was my thoughts on book 2 of this series. I forgot to look up what the series was called. But yeah, this was The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Laurie Gilmore for episode 13 of Bunny Musings. And this was Bunny, and I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, perhaps we will continue with the rest of the series because we might as well. we we might as well. We're already a third of the way there or something because there's like 6 books, I think. But yeah, I hope you're having a good whenever, and I'll see you next time. Bye.